Welcome everyone. I'm Madeline Di Nonno, President and CEO of the Institute. And I would like to introduce our ASL interpreter, Mara Bastiani. Thank you, Mara, for joining us. And I also want to introduce Lisa Emery, who's our Director of Digital Media. She's going to be backstage looking for all of your questions, which we would love for you to put in the Q&A. And also I want to introduce Jasmine Barad, who is Director of Special Events. So before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that I am on the traditional lands of the Lenni Lenape people in New Jersey. And although we are gathering virtually, the land beneath my feet belongs to Indigenous peoples. So I just wanted to give that acknowledgement. And without further ado, I would love to introduce our illustrious assembled executives and talent for today. First off, I'd love to introduce Christina Kim, who has been a long time, writer. She is the co-showrunner. She's an award-winning writer as well, and also speaks fluent Korean, which is, fabulous. Next, I would like to introduce executive producer and co-showrunner of Kung Fu, Robert Berens. So Robert Bobo, we're going to get to the Bobo in a minute. I need to know the Bobo came from long time writer, from the East Coast, like me, made the pilgrimage to LA, has written on probably every show you've ever, thought of. So I just want to say, welcome, welcome Bob. And then this is like the crazy girl crush moment. I've just like goosies. So excited. Olivia Liang, who plays, of course, Nicky Shen, hailed from New York, but is also a Cali gal, having gone to school in Cali, speaks fluent Mandarin. I also have another girl crush for her because I'm a Legacies crazy fan person as well. And then Shannon, who's a Cali girl, dancer, triple threat in terms of talent, has been in many, films and shows, and thrilled to have her here as well. So without further ado, so I was doing like extra homework, like on my red eye the other day, and there's like 7 big themes. We're going to be here forever. I hope everybody is just, relaxed in, because we have a lot to talk about. So Christina and Bob, and I need to know the Bobo story. There were kind of 7 big themes that I want to, unpack. First of all, you were extremely mindful and thoughtful and strategic about approaching this material. And Christina, I wanted to talk to you about it because I know you have pitched and we're very keen to have, an Asian American, kind of centric show. Did this fall in your lap, or did you go after it? Like, just for our audience, like how did this happen for you?
Well, it was a little bit of both. I think nothing ever really falls in your lap. I think there were a couple of things that happened before that made this possible. The year before Kung Fu, I had written a spec pilot, and it was about a Korean American family. And so I sold that. It didn't make it to series, but off of that, I realized that this was writing about my culture, writing about, Asian Americans was something I wanted to do. Kung Fu was a property that Warner Brothers has been wanting to make for a very long time. So it was kind of a perfect marriage that they came to me. We had a great development process with my previous project, and they said, what do you think about taking a crack at Kung Fu? It was an honor, also super daunting because Kung Fu is an iconic show. And also because I realized that there were things, if I were to develop it, that I wanted to change. And so I wanted to honor the material, but also update it. And that was the biggest challenge, but also the most rewarding. And I'm really happy, obviously, to have Olivia be Nicky Shen, who, is the lead of our show, and to have Shannon and our entire cast, nearly our entire cast, is Asian American. So it's been an amazing opportunity.
And so how did you and Bobo, because I'm going to be saying Bobo for the rest of my life, meet? How did you become paired? And, Bob, I mean, you've been around the block a lot with, Supernatural is a favorite show of mine. You've been at the CW, you've been everywhere. How did you two become partnered? And what did you think about tackling, this 70s, show and making it, relevant for today's audiences?
I'll just jump in and say that I had many blind dates with potential partners, and Bob beat everybody by a mile, more than a mile. We just had like a mind meld early on. I feel like Bob saw, at that point, all we had was our sizzle reel. We hadn't finished shooting the pilot, and we had the presentation for what the show was going to be, and Bob read it, and we just started having a conversation about the characters, and I just felt like Bob got what this was. And, it just, I don't know, Bob, I felt like we had a cosmic connection, and I just had a good feeling, and it was the best decision that I've made in terms of this show.
Yeah, it was very much a blind date that we got on. And I would say that, you get certain advice in the industry about what your next move should be. And certainly, coming off of 10 years of consecutive CW writing, and it's like, oh, diversify your portfolio, get out on a cable show, do development. And that was sort of the avenue I was taking, I need to change it up, meet new executives, go to different networks and platforms. And I took the meeting with Christina because I love the pilot and we hit it off so well. And then it was just like, oh God, they're going to get me back. They're going to get me back. And really it was seeing the cast all assembled. There's just an energy from this cast, all together. And for a number of reasons, talent, beauty, and also just the historic nature of this project, seeing them all together in the sizzle reel and the promotional shots, I'm just like, oh God, I cannot say no to this. And it's been a blessed collaboration and partnership with Christina. I feel so lucky that she chose me to take this journey with her.
And moving right into, you have such an all-star cast. And what was it like for you to put out those, sides, and tell us a little bit about what it was like for you. Did you actually know Olivia and Shannon prior, or already the cast prior? And what was it like when you met them? Or I don't know if it was pre-COVID, right? So maybe audition tapes or however you did it. What was that like? Was it just like magic?
Honestly, with everybody on our cast, I knew that they were the exact person to play the role, and I knew it immediately when they walked into the room. It all started with Ty Ma, who everybody loves Ty, everybody knows Ty, and I had the good fortune of randomly meeting him through a mutual friend at a party. And I never do this, but with the encouragement of my husband, who said you should just talk to him, I was in the pilot process, pitch process, and I went up to him and I said, this is a little bit awkward, but you are in my mind's eye as I'm writing the dad character in this story. And Ty said, tell me about it. What's this project, Kung Fu? And I told him, I pitched him, the elevator pitch of what the show was going to be. And he said, I'll do it. And I said, oh, that's so friendly. That's such a nice thing to say. We have a common friend. We're at a party, and I didn't really take it seriously. But once we actually got picked up, I said, well, I met Ty. He said he'd do it. Maybe we just reach out and ask if he'd be interested in reading it. And immediately Ty, got back and said, I'd do it. I'm going to do it. I think this is great. I think it's an important show. I love what you're doing. I want to be the dad on the show. And so once Ty was locked in, just all the casting, it was just like meant to be. When Olivia walked into the room, I was like, oh my gosh, that's Nicky. And Olivia, you brought all these qualities that were kind of in my head that weren't even on the page yet, but I imagined. And Shannon walked in this amazing jumpsuit, won over all the executives, just strutted in there. It was hilarious, made the sides even funnier than they were. So it was just an amazing moment of I can see this family coming together, and it goes for the whole cast all the way down.
So Olivia and Shannon, tell us a little bit, because Olivia, you've said, I will never be in a martial arts, it's whatever. And, both of you were just anti stereotypes and tropes. And you've said, you've tried, not having a name or just grunting or whatever. And that was it. So can you tell us a little bit about, when your agent, managers, whatever said, hey, read this, what was your impression and what was your impression auditioning? And then tell me about, like, did you meet each other before a table read? Like, I'd love to know, because your chemistry is just off the chart.
So Shannon and I met in 2018, maybe. We had both done a showcase for another network, and her year, she came right after me, and everyone was calling her Olivia that year because they were like, you guys look like sisters, and we didn't know each other. And so we were like, you guys are being racist. You guys are just saying all Asians look alike. And then we met and I was like, oh, I understand, we do look alike. And I just want to shout out her pink jumpsuit from her audition for Kung Fu, because we were waiting to test at the Warner Brothers studio, and there's like a very long hallway, and I was kind of in the waiting room with a bunch of other actors, and then I like turn to my left because I hear this like stomping down the hall, and I turn and it's Shannon in this like fabulous hot pink jumpsuit and a white coat and a bag on her arm, and she was like, Olivia.
Okay, I still think every time she reenacts my motion, I think she's exaggerating, but
No,
I
she
kind of
was
believe it.
strutting down the hallway. She was strutting. But no, it was so wonderful to see her because I knew her. And I mean, we actually kind of knew a lot of people in that final process, because the industry is so small in terms of the pool of Asian actors. And it was just like a little support system as we were all testing for the first time for an all Asian cast show. And, the energy was very exciting. But I went super off topic. Let me reel it back. When I got the sides for Nicky, I at first was skeptical because in my inbox it said, Kung Fu. And I was like, come on, another more, haven't we done enough? But then I opened up the email and it said, Nicky Shen lead, and then it listed all of the other characters, and they were all Asian characters. And that was the first time I had ever seen an entire cast list that was Asian American. And so that already started to change my mind. I was like, okay, so maybe it's not just about martial arts. Maybe we're not just coming on the screen to throw a couple kicks and punches and hayas and then leave. And then I read the pilot that Christina wrote so beautifully and from such an authentic Asian American place. And it just clicked for me. I didn't have to act at all to be Nicky. It was just like in my bones because it was so authentically Asian American. And it was the first time that I had read a script and felt truly seen. And so I was like, me in, yes, I'm in. If not me, then thank goodness, at least this is getting made.
Shannon, what about you?
Yes, love everything that Liv just said. The story, yes, of the jumpsuit. But I think it was similar in a sense of, it's pilot season. You get an email notification. You have an audition for Kung Fu. Sentiments exactly of like, of course it's called Kung Fu. Like, okay, what are we gonna do? But I remember seeing that it was a remake of the 1970s version. So I go to my dad and I'm like, have you heard of Kung Fu? And he goes, oh my gosh, I love that show. Like, you have to book it. And I was like, cool, thanks, Dad. Like, I'll try. Easier said than done. And then I look at the whole cast list and it's Asian, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I was like, I'll take any of them. I have to be part of this. Oh, you want me to be the Shifu? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
At some point you're just like, I just need to be part of this because this has never been seen before. So automatically I had that, my heartstrings were on this project. And I originally auditioned for Nicky because that's who they were looking first for, obviously not right for her at all. And I remember the casting director was like, on second thought, here's her sister, come back next week. And I was like, perfect, loved it. I read Althea, I loved it. I felt so in tune with her. Similar to what Liv said, in just sense, you just feel that you are this person and you feel seen. And I was like, from there, it was just all downhill. It's been an amazing journey.
Was it you know, sometimes we're like, there are signs. I mean, was it interesting? Because I think I read somewhere when you were one, was it you did a commercial with Tai Ma when you were one? And was it your grandfather that was actually in the original Kung Fu? Did I read that correct?
Yeah. Okay, so some of this is so I did a film when I was, I want to say like 11 with Ty. He played my boyfriend's dad. So we have this photo together that my parents took of us in the trailer, and I had braces and everything, and I'm sitting on his lap. And it's funny because that photo ended up being on the Shen family fridge. So when people see it in the episodes, they're like, wait, that's really good Photoshop. I was like, that's real. So it was really cool, serendipitous moment. But yes, my grandfather was in the original 1970s version. He did a lot of background work because back in the day, whenever Hollywood needed Asians for their films, they would just go to Chinatown. So there was my grandpa. So he loves this full circle moment, and he's really proud.
And that's wonderful. So Christina and Bob, I want to go back to you thinking about themes, and then of course, Olivia and Shannon, you know, jump in. So one thing that jumped out at me, and particularly when you think about the timing and what I consider the parallel pandemic, which is to fight, you know, racial injustice, anti, you know, Asian hate, you know, crime. I mean, you tackle this head on, and not just that, but you know, sexual assault, and you've, you know, the relations between you know, African Americans and Asian Americans. So when you think about the ecosystem of the show and kind of like, you know, what's at the core of it, can you talk about how you approached social issues? And I also want to say it's amazing. I do want you all to talk about the composition of the writers' room, because it is absolutely unique and something to be extremely proud of. But can you just talk about the social issues and how you decided to incorporate them and navigate your way through that?
Bob, do you want to jump in, or would you like me to?
I mean, I think, you know, when I read the pilot and the series Bible, I think it was always Christina's intention that the show would tackle social issues. I will say though, like, we didn't know exactly where those stories were going to land in the season. We didn't know the exact nature of that. And it really took the alchemy of, as you said, our writer's room to come together and start talking about the season that we started to realize certain stories we wanted to tell. I don't think Althea's story, as I recall, Christina, came out from writer's room conversations and from some individual experiences that people had had. And so it was an organic process, and it was something that came about from all of us talking about what was going on in the world, what was going on in each of our lives at the time that we were writing the show. And when we convened for the writers' room, you know, we had an incredibly diverse staff, and it was also during, you know, the height of BLM and the protests in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder. So I think it was on all of our minds already. Specifically, the Black Lives Matter episode was a situation where the network had decided they would like all shows to address that in some form or another. So that was a situation where they approached us, but we had already been weaving social issues into our stories from jump.
I think we have a really unique opportunity on our show because we can talk about these issues within the context of the Shen family and through the lens of an Asian American family that's a multi-generational family. So that gives us a lot of sort of leeway and bandwidth in terms of not just having one point of view. When we were working and breaking episode 105, which is the episode that dealt with BLM, we saw this opportunity to see it through the lens of mom and dad, see it through the lens of the kids, see it through the lens of Black characters, Asian characters. And that gave us so much material, and also just really interesting conversations within the writer's room. Like we, you know, started a writer's room in a Zoom room. It was always on Zoom. So we all met one time as human people in a real space. But we were able to open up in a way, and in a weird way, we bonded over this computer screen where people really shared their experiences. And a ton of it made it to the screen.
So Olivia and Shannon, what was it like for you? Did you do a table read first? Because it's Sanctuary is the name of the episode, right? If I have that correct. I mean, it's a heavy episode, like every beat, every moment. you use hers music. I mean, just the whole thing. What was it like for you to immerse yourself in that, knowing that what's happening in the real world is now happening in your, fictional world? What was it like for you when you read through that material?
It was intense. We have table reads before we start shooting every episode, and that one in particular, even before the table read, when we got the draft of it, I started to feel a lot of like anxiety bubble up because I wanted to do it right. And I did never want Nicky to feel like she was fixing racism and then like wrapping it up in a neat little bow by the end of the episode. And so I love the way that our episode ended. And credit to the writers that it wasn't fixed. It was that we keep on fighting. I believe Henry says that, you keep on doing the good work, you keep on showing up, and you just keep pushing forward. And I loved that that was the message that we ended on, instead of, Nicky saved the day and everything is fixed, because that's just not the experience of Black Americans. And I echo what Christina was saying about us having a very unique opportunity as a show with predominantly Asian Americans to tell it through this lens. And especially because this year and this past year, there was a lot of pitting Asian Americans against Black Americans when really what we needed was solidarity. And so I was really happy that we were able to show the solidarity through that episode, because that's really what's most important at the end of all of this is for us to just see each other and understand each other and uplift each other. So yeah, but it was a very intense experience, but I'm very, very, very proud of the episode that we ended up with.
And Shannon, how did you feel about it?
I love everything that Liv and Christina just said. I think, yes, it was very powerful. I think a specific moment that stood out to me was when we were filming it in Harmony Dumplings. There's a raid that happens and smoke bombs. I mean, it's all not real smoke, but like we're being thrown into the streets and crowds of people. And I remember just being inside Harmony Dumplings, and all of a sudden, like, it was very like triggering. Like, I feel like I just watched this on TV. And so to live this in real life, it was like an out of body, like, wait, is this real? Are we still making television now? It felt really close to home. And I'm really grateful that we've been given the opportunity to highlight such an important subject matter and tell it through our lens. And I think it resonated with a lot of people and stirred a lot of great conversations.
So one more thing I want to talk about in terms of social issues, and then we'll move on and then get into Q&A. Shannon, so duck scene, I mean, one of the best monologues I've heard, in ages. And for me, I felt it was a dramatic kind of evolution in the arc of your character, based on how you were positioned in the beginning, and then it's like wham. And Christina and Bob, I'd love for you to talk about a little bit about that, the writing of that, and Shannon, your performance of that was just, spectacular.
Thank you so much. Bob, wait, did you want to say something before I?
Oh, it was just a sidebar, just that in terms of like getting that right balance for episode 5, I just want to talk about that Olivia came to us with certain concerns, and I think we all wanted the same thematic takeaway from the end of the episode, which is that it should be about solidarity and that Nicky is not solving racism, but getting that balance right. And it was really beautifully written by our writer, AC Newman, and really wonderfully directed by RT. But like Olivia came to us with some concerns about certain moments in that. So striking that balance was very collaborative. And Olivia is an incredibly smart actress who like found ways for us to get even closer to what we wanted that sort of final takeaway to be. So it was just a little credit that was getting that balance right was very much a collaborative process. So that was my little sidebar. But now it's your turn, Shannon.
Oh, I forgot the question.
Oh, really talking about it was a shift in your character.
Yes.
To me, it was such a profound monologue that you just, delivered. It was just like breathtaking. And what was that experience for you as well? Because it was a shift. It's like, where you went with that evolved your character. Like there was no going back for you.
Yes, yes. Thank you. The shift was interesting because when I first auditioned for Althea, we just got the pilot, and she, on paper, is the lightheartedness of the family. She's cracking jokes. She just wants everyone to get along. Everything is happy in her newly engaged life. And it wasn't until while we were filming the pilot, Christina and I had sat down, and she had told me where Althea's storyline was going to go. And I remember being like, wait, what? Like, are you sure? I was nervous because it's such an important subject matter. And I was like, are you sure you trust me to tell this story? Like, you haven't even seen me do anything that's not, you know, like remotely serious. So I felt honored and privileged to be given this opportunity to share this story and my version or take on it. And I guess there was some pressure, you know, to, like all important subject matters and sensitivity, to get it right, or what does that look like, and feeling the pressure to speak on behalf of those victims that resonate with that storyline. But it's been a really helpful journey. I got to talk with the writer. Christina and Bob were very helpful in the process. I have to give a huge, big credit to director America Young and my lovely scene partner, Liv. Amazing. Like that whole day, I remember we filmed, I think, the duck scene in one day, and then a separate day for the ending of the episode where she tells everything to Nicky on the couch. And so just to be able to have that time and that safe space and such a generous partner and understanding director really helped. So I couldn't have done it without them.
Well, it really shows. So I know we don't have a lot of time left. So I could, like I said, it could be all about me asking you questions for hours. So Lisa, I'm going to bring you back because I know we have some questions. So I'm going to let you take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us, everyone, in the chat and giving your inputs. So many people have been saying how much that they love the show in the chat and just complimenting the casting and the work that's been done. I just want to say, as an Asian American woman, this has been like such a great show to binge, and I've really related with it, with family dynamics and everything. So thank you for that so much. But yeah, let's get into some of the Q&A from some fans. Someone wanted to know, has the types of roles or projects that come your way changed after the debut of Kung Fu, especially with AAPI representation? I think this is for Shannon and Olivia, but anyone can chime in.
Well, as far as I definitely think I see a lot more opportunity and content out there that are really focusing and giving the opportunity for representation and for more diversity. I think now when I read the breakdowns, and if they're looking for an Asian American female, as I would receive, they're a little more now maybe outside the box, a little less generic, I would say, from the past, which is really nice. I think that shows progress, just fully fleshed out characters. Like, oh, not a stereotype. Awesome. I would love to read for this. Thank you. That's me.
Same. It's the characters are being described with a little bit more nuance now, it seems like. Yes, there are qualities that are very universally Asian American in these breakdowns, but the context of them is different, or like the storyline is different, and so it's very exciting. It's an exciting time.
Totally agree. That's so awesome to hear from you both. Thank you. So this one comes from, looks like Nicole wants to know, the balance of Nicky's story versus each family member's story has been really impressive. Can you talk a little bit how you decide to balance this big supernatural story with the more mundane but equally moving real life dramas of the rest of the family, and why that was so important to you?
Yeah, I think, starting with the pilot, the core story is about Nicky. It's about Nicky's journey, who she is. It's about her family, where she came from, and where she wants to go. But I think there was something really fun and a little, a bigger story to talk about, which is the idea of fate, of destiny, of, history, of where you're coming from. And Nicky explores this when she goes to China. So I felt like there was an opportunity. We always in the room would say just an eyedropper of magic, but it's a really fun eyedropper of magic that we've interspersed into the show. With the sword, with Pei Ling, who, is no longer alive, but is still very much alive in the show. So it is a balancing act. I think for Bob and I always talk about it, the show really comes to life when the family is together, that those are our favorite scenes. We love these characters so much, but it is nice to have something else to cut to, something that Nicky is wondering, is this real? Is there something bigger out there? And we find that she now leans on the characters that we love to try to figure out the answers to all this, like with Henry, with, Evan, and eventually with her parents and her siblings. So it's been a fun balancing act, I would have to say.
Yeah, it's just been a joy. I mean, working with an ensemble this talented and a family story this rich. And I think there's an alternate version of this show where, Althea and Ryan are just coming to help out a little bit on a case, and they get a little wisecrack in. And it's like, the fact that the family is so integrated into the heart of this show, it just makes it a rich show, unlike anything else on television. I believe, like, it's really so special. And because the supporting cast is so great, and because Olivia is so generous with each of them, it's like, that was an episode that essentially ends at episode 4 with a scene between two sisters. And not only that, our hero is not making it about her. She's making, she's taking in her sister's pain. And I think that's a little bit of a subversion of the sort of hero story, which would be it's got to be about Nicky. It's got to be about Nicky. It's like, her family is her. It's a part of her. So I think there's something really special about what Christina created there that we get to lean on every episode.
Yeah, definitely. And you see it consistently throughout the show. It's a really wonderful thing to experience. I think we have time for one more question. So this one's for everyone. We kind of want to know what the fan response has been and what your fans have said to you and feedback wise. Yeah, this one's for anyone. That's it. Cool.
Good. It's been good, I think, from everything that we've seen, when we're live tweeting with the fans, and then when I click on the hashtag and see what people are saying, people are really invested in the story, and not just the mysticism and the magic of it all, but it seems like what people really love is the Shen family. Like, I see so many people saying that their ultimate couple goals is Jin and Mei Li, because obviously they're perfect together. But so it's been really awesome to see people of all backgrounds connect with the Shen family first and foremost, and then they stick around for the fun fighting and the magic and the love and all of that. But people are coming for the Shens, and I feel really proud that we are able to bring this Chinese American family to screens.
Yeah, to echo on what Liv said, I think I love specifically when young adults are saying that they love the Shen siblings as well, because growing up, as a little girl, I didn't see any siblings that look like me and my brother on television. So to be able to give that family dynamic to so many young adults and generations and people with siblings, it means so much. I love it. And we do feel like siblings in real life.
Yes.
It's cool.
I think
No, go ahead.
The thing that warms my heart the most is when people say they watch the show with their family. And I've heard that from quite a number of people, and not just my own family, but different generations, mom and dad with their kids are watching the show. And I think that's so just special. And that makes me so happy that people are able to connect to the show on different levels at different age groups.
So before we leave, what do we have to look forward to for season 2?
Bob, you're much better at not spoiling everything. People ask me, and I'm like, oh, I was not supposed to say that. But
well, we're convening the writers' room. We reopen it next Monday, so there's a lot of stuff that may change once we get everyone's voices in all together. But I can say that Christina and I were, what was so great about the first season is because the big myth stuff was happening, you know, in China, we got to focus on the family, the Shen family, and really build out these characters and build equity in them. But one thing we wanted to promise with our finale was the danger is moving home. So essentially, I think there's an opportunity for the myth story and the adventure to intersect more closely with the family and draw them more closely into sort of the saga at the, you know, at the narrative center of our show. So we love that little tease at the end of the finale. We're really excited to dig in and find ways to keep this family going and keep them sort of in the mix of all this epic drama.
So Christina, so is there something we should be putting on our calendars yet, or you don't know, or?
In terms of when we'll be back?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, Bob, I think we will be back. When is it? I think we'll probably be back.
I should know this, but it's early February, I think.
I think January or February we will be back, I think.
Well, we will make sure that everybody who's watching today will absolutely know. We'll be shouting from the rafters when season 2 launches. So again, I just want to thank you so much, Christina, Bob, Olivia, Shannon, you know, Mara. Thanks to Lisa and Jasmine. It was just such a privilege to speak with all of you, and just know that you're part of our Institute family, and we can't wait for season 2. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Everybody, take care. Bye.